Well, let's settle this right now because everyone's arguing. People are wondering who's to blame, and like all true cataclysms that happen on a large scale, there have to be multiple points of failure. There have to be multiple people that we can blame. I want a rankings of blame from you, Kirk.
Ooh.
The Luka trade. I know I'm just throwing that at you. It's got to be off the top of your head. Can you give me a list in order of who has the most blame for what happened here?
Gosh, I'm worried about this because I have one friend in particular who is so forcefully bullying me about, because I've just gone back and forth with him in a while, and I'm worried that if he sees this, he will never let me live it down. Ultimately, I think you have to assign blame number one with Patrick Dumont, the owner. It is his job to make ultimate, to say yes or no. I personally will never forgive Nico Harrison. He's an easy number two. Even if you're getting, incepted by Jason Kidd, you have to look in the mirror and go, this is one of the top 3 players. This is a potential top 15 player all time. Why would I trade that person in my prime? So Nico Harrison's number 2. And then Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd has to play a role in this. We still don't know, but I think Jason Kidd is just too smooth of an operator. This doesn't happen without his at least awareness that it is a possibility. And that's where everything else goes. I mean, there's the Mavericks have consolidated their front office power. So it just has to be those 3 in that order.
Wow. That list elides Luka. A little soft on Luka, I would say. My list, I waffle on ownership versus GM here. I think I'm going to have to go with the decision of this magnitude being the purview of the GM. I think that GMs respond to ownership pressure, but I think a decision of this magnitude, you have to own it. So I'm going Nico first. I was thinking even last night I was going ownership first, but I'm going Nico first. Okay. This conversation has swayed me. I'm going Nico first. I'm going ownership second. After that, I think I will go Luka, and then I will go Kidd. Okay. Because Luka, Brian Windhorst had a point, man. He had a point. Luka should have been in better shape. I mean, some of these things that they're pulling to justify what happened, they're not out of thin air. No. He's a great player, shouldn't have been traded. I'm so against what happened. At the same time, I think that if he was reaching the levels of professionalism that he should have been reaching, it never would have come to this. So that is my ranking right now, at least. And I am subject to change as we learn more and more that comes out.
So I have a soft defense of Luka. Not too hard, because I think everything that was said, the criticism lands, but it becomes all this stuff makes sense. But I believe that from the moment he walked into the building, and Haralabos Voulgaris, the former Mavs shadow GM of sorts.
So I totally forgot somebody in my blame ranking. We'll get to your soft defense, but I've got to, Nico, ownership. I'm even getting Kidd out of there. Because I don't even know Kidd's like Nico, ownership, Mark Cuban, Luka. That is my order. And my explanation is Mark Cuban was secretly the GM of the Mavericks, and I doubt he told the new ownership when he sold them the team that he was actually the GM, and Nico's job was more of a recruiter / facilitator. So they ran into this wall of a Peter Principle problem because they thought Nico was just running the team. And what do they know? They don't know basketball. That's on them to a large degree. But Cuban set up the organization to fail after he sold the team. Cuban has to share some blame here. So that's my ranking.
I like it. It's a point that I sometimes forget, largely because Cuban is just sort of been out of mind for me for a while. But my soft defense of Luka is this. He was drafted the 5th pick that the Mavericks traded up for, to get Trae Young. He came in the building, and I think it took Cuban a little bit to accept Luka, because it was a hard sell. Haralabos Voulgaris talked about this on the BS report way back around the time of the trade. Haralabos at that point was not yet the shadow GM, was sort of advising Cuban, so to speak. But once he realized he had a golden goose, Cuban went all in. And but the problem with going all in was I think they abdicated Luka of any responsibility pretty early on, where they let him know that he was ruling the roost and had the keys to the kingdom. And that is, I don't care who you are, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, anybody, Wilt Chamberlain. If you let a person know they have power over you, they are going to exercise that whether they intend to or not. And I have a very, very strong feeling, no proof, that direct confrontation with Luka Dončić regarding his habits never occurred. Never occurred. The playing weight probably being the most simple thing where I just have a strong feeling that there was no discussion of Luka. We think you need to be playing at 235. This is why. This is what our medical tells us. Instead, there were probably hints, discussions. They fired Mavericks owner, or they quiet fired Mavericks owner Casey Smith, who was the U.S. men's national team owner. And as a result, brought someone else in who Luka Dončić did not trust. So he went and got his own team. That in itself is an enormous red flag to the Mavericks that they are making a mistake. You cannot bring superstars to heel in this league. And they tried to, and they tried to, but they did so in a passive aggressive way and ultimately removed on from him. And so Luka seems so surprised about the trade. Now, unless he's an amazing actor, which I don't think he is, I have to sort of believe what he's telling us. And my defense of him falls to the fact that I wonder if these hard discussions, the reasons that they were concerned about him, were ever really brought to light with him in a meaningful way.
I wouldn't be shocked if they weren't, but this might be how this happened in a way, because the setup in the NBA, the relationship of superstar to the franchise, is probably incomprehensible to a lot of powerful business people who've been in other sectors, where this guy, basically, if he's one of the five guys, is your boss. Yeah, you're the owner. You're the owner. In theory, you are his boss. But in actuality, he is your boss. And you are going to live under his leverage in the way that LeBron James has been torturing team after team while providing for them. And while you might want to end that arrangement, and if you're new to the scene and you're frustrated with all these aspects of it, it feels like this is a situation you might want to end. You're going to learn quick the other aspect of it, which is that the other scenario is that you are going to be just begging for, seeking, hoping, praying for yet another dynamic where a guy in his 20s is your boss and you can't tell him what to do. That's just how the NBA is. Maybe you'll be lucky and you'll get Tim Duncan or Steph Curry. But for the most part, this is how it is. You have a superstar. That means usually that you've got a chance. And that superstar is going to understand their leverage and they're going to tell you what to do because you can't do this. I just think that's hard for somebody who's not used to the NBA, to really process. But if you're Mark Cuban, you've been in it for 2 decades, you just know those are the rules of the road.
The single most, you can replace GMs, you can replace owners, you cannot replace superstars. And the Mavericks are about to find that out in a real way, because whether or not you consider Dirk Nowitzki like a true superstar of the previous era, the fact was
I should have said Dirk. I pulled a Dumont. You get Steph Curry, you get Tim Duncan, you get Dirk. Sorry, continue.
But even if you don't consider Dirk like a true superstar of the previous era, he held up the franchise by himself for 21 years.
Dirk's the superstar. I mean, they changed basketball strategy for Dirk. You don't be so humble about your guy.
Well, but if in terms of ratings and drawability, that was what made the leap from Dirk to Luka so interesting. Is like Luka was part of the zeitgeist. Like Luka is winning, all-star votes, winning, jersey, like the jersey sales things. Like Luka was the guy. And that they think that guy is replaceable is truly fascinating from a big picture perspective. But this is they're about to find out, because I am fearful that the Mavericks are about to enter a winter of sorts of fandom.